Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our hybrid Heritage Wilmot meetings. Welcome also to those tuning in or viewing online, either live or afterwards. I'd like to start off with a territorial acknowledgement. We've gathered virtually in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and to Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant and the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community. Moving on to disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Do any members have any pecuniary interest to disclose? Seeing none. Next is review of the minutes from our January 11th meeting. Yvonne, thanks for pointing out the error on the mover seconder. I looked back, I had the names. That's impressive. I had the names from our last meeting and they're still, so it should be Marg and Al. So other than that, any additional comments, questions, omissions? All right, then could I have a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment? Mark, second by Al. Hey, same as last meeting. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving on to business. First item was Heritage Day, final coordination. Just that a final touch base before the event in a few weeks. So it looks like we have a good mix of exhibitors and things are getting in order. I'm looking forward to the event and doing the intro as well. Is there any updates from the subcommittee or last things we need to talk about?
I think everything is in place. As you mentioned, we have 9 exhibitors. Thanks to Cam for printing off all of the posters and distributing those locally. It's going to be marketed in the Independent, the Baden Outlook, and the Wilmot Tavistock Gazette as well. And then we've also got a social media campaign, which is starting in the next couple of days. And thank you to Yvonne for booking the lecturer and the lecturers. So we're quite excited to hear what they have to say.
Excellent. Thanks, Sherry. I'll have to get some of the posters as well. I'll drop one off at our office too. And then, is there any for setup? I recall there's assistance needed for chairs and things like that, or? Oh, okay.
Cam and myself are going to go over as well to set up and make sure everything's in order, and we've got the refreshments all lined up, and yeah, we are ready for the evening.
Just to add, we'll be getting some coffee from Baden Coffee and getting some cookies from Sobeys, just in the spirit of supporting township businesses. So, and then we'll also ensure that there's obviously water and coffee and things like that there in addition to that.
Perfect. Yvonne?
What time can the exhibitors come to start setting up?
Good question.
We are actually going to be there from 4 o'clock on, so they can set up anytime after 4. Mm-hmm.
And then for the Heritage Wilmot exhibit, do you guys need a hand setting that up, or is it just the table and a couple stands? Okay. Excellent. Well, it sounds like everything is in hand. Anything else? Al?
Unfortunately, I have a conflict that night, so
Oh, no.
I'll be there for the first part, but I'll miss the speaker's presentation, which I'm really disappointed in because I was really looking forward to it. So if someone wants to record it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think the speaker part will be live streamed, won't it, or available after, or both? I'm getting thumbs up, so. Two thumbs up. Patty, did you have something? Oh, I thought I saw you wave. Okay, well, I think that's it for Heritage Day then. The next item we had was the Register of Non-Designated Properties. I put this here just in case there was any news related to implementation of the Heritage Act changes. There hasn't been much since the other month when we met or talked about it. I know last time we talked about moving our existing register to be the Wilmot building inventory, so I think we should work on that. And then also adding some properties of interest in New Hamburg. And Margie, you mentioned the ones on Peel Street, but were there other ones as well? Or were those the most important ones?
We haven't gone any further than Peel Street. That's just, yeah, we just started
Okay.
there and then things happened, so.
Perfect. And then I think we can add those to kind of get ready, but other than that, I think it's more or less a wait and see from the province on implementation. Anything anyone wanted to add for that? Al?
Just a theoretical or a hypothetical question. I know that this is our last meeting of the previous term, so do we need to pass a motion to basically transfer our inventory or our register into an inventory? Will that require a motion from the committee or not? I'm just wondering because I'm not too sure when we're going to, what happens after tonight.
Well, it's a good segue into the last agenda item.
Okay. Well, I see that's the last agenda item.
I don't know, do we need a motion to move over? Yeah, I guess it would go to council anyway, so.
Well, then, should we be passing a recommendation for council? No? Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything.
Still 2 years.
Yeah.
The registry's still live for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll still be the register, even if it comes into effect tomorrow. It's still the register for another 2 years. Al?
But I guess the thing we have to, I'm sure we're all realizing this, but we have to keep in our mind that once this happens, it's 2 years and then it's gone for 5. So there are a lot of properties that we should probably not have on the register so that we can bring them back and not have to wait 5 years to bring them back.
Oh, okay.
Or in case we decide to move on designation on one of those properties, we won't have that 5-year time frame to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? Yvonne?
Al has me really worried now. No, I'm just trying to think of how the way this is set up, right? Where you're talking about 2 years and then 5 years off. So do we have to calculate ahead of time right now to say, okay, in the next year we can allocate realistically allocate X number, and they're the cream that goes to the top. But then we have to look at what's next, and then after that, what's left over. We don't want to have things that are important not accessible for to be designated for 5 years. So we have to take the stuff that's not right at the top, but that's not. So we have to, I think, remove the buildings that we know are unlikely to become designated, and then they can stay on the list. But it's what happens between now and then. So it's that 2-year time frame where we really have to focus on which are the buildings that we can realistically designate, and which are the ones we're just not even going to bother with, right? But I don't know that, like, the time frame that we have now, I don't know. I mean, can we even do this while this committee still sits?
Harold?
I can try to take a stab a bit on the timelines. Is the legislation, and until we see the implementation, it could be that properties that were on the registry as of the date of like December 31st, that pulling them off the registry now doesn't guarantee that they wouldn't still have that 2-year window. So I think realistically, it's best to leave the registry. It's the municipally approved registry. It's still a status for 2 years. And then we come up with our strategy once we know what the actual implementation is. Having said that, we have put within the draft budget monies for the Heritage Committee. Again, it still has to go through the council process and vetting, but to allow for designation of probably 2 properties from the list this year. Realistically, knowing the work that's involved, the cost involved, potentially if a survey is needed, things like that, to not create an unrealistic expectation that we're going to designate 20 properties in a year. But certainly trying to look that for the next 2 years, as you said, the cream of the crop, the highest priority properties, we do need to identify those and move forward. I think that's a prudent approach to start thinking along those lines of, and I know we had talked about maybe a subcommittee looking at that list and trying to create a priority within that list, because certainly there should be, I would think in a list of 120 properties, there's probably 2 to 5 properties that we absolutely probably should move forward with designation if we can. So that would be my suggestion. But as to pulling properties off the list at this time, I wouldn't recommend that, because there's no guarantee that that has an effect.
No, I didn't mean to actually pull them off the list. I just thought somehow to prioritize
Right.
them. That was
definitely
more or less what I
prioritizing
was
makes sense.
referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I thought you were thinking that we should not have register so that we don't start the 2-year timing. Okay. Okay.
You forget I was a librarian at one time.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I think we should definitely then go through the list and then have some priorities for what we want to designate once we know information about, transition and things like that. That's a good point, Harold. That we don't know what the transition looks like for any register that's out there now. Okay. Any other register thoughts? All right. Move on to new business. So the item under there was the next Heritage Wilmot term. So I put that on there since this would, as Al said, be our last meeting of this committee. And I knew that staff was working on getting things ready for people to apply for a new term. And I know there's some effort in updating the terms of reference for committees, and that's still finishing up. There's a staff report actually going to council next week that authorizes all the current committees to be extended for until the time that the review of the updated terms of reference is done. So assuming that is extended, I expect that we would, or staff would be seeking to see if we're all in agreement with staying on for a longer term. So hopefully we get some good news on that front on Monday, and we can continue working on things we have underway, like the register, and be set up for whenever those changes come into place. Harold or Sherry, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
I think you summarized it perfectly, Nick. There is a staff report from the ILS department, the municipal clerk, for all the committees. It includes Committee of Adjustment, Dangerous Dogs Committee, Castle Kilbride Committee, Heritage Committee, Property Standards Committee, to extend those terms. It is a publicly available report. Council hasn't considered it yet, so that's the unknown piece, but it is within the agenda package that's posted to the township website, so you're all welcome to read it. But hopefully by not putting an end date, knowing that with budget and all the various pressures right now, the timing isn't guaranteed as to when the new term would take place, but it is on the agenda as soon as we can to have those updated terms of reference. So apologize for the delays. There's a lot of stuff going on in municipal government right now, but obviously it is, certainly the desire of the municipality to retain, in respect, the Heritage Committee is a valuable committee. We value your efforts and your volunteerism towards the preservation of heritage in Wilmot. So we're hoping that that is agreeable to members of this committee to stay appointed for the foreseeable future.
And Harold, did you want us to let staff know, I guess, after we know the report's passed? Okay.
We'll send a circular. Sure, send a circular.
Okay. Perfect. So Al, we have more time. Anything else on that from anybody? All right. Next item was correspondence. I didn't have anything. Anyone have any correspondence to share? No? Or other info sharing? Al?
Some of you may be aware of this, but I know that Wilmot Tavistock is at Heritage Editions coming out a week from today.
And is that the one that you had something in?
It's in the works.
Excellent. And I think the Independent had a heritage-focused edition too, but is that right, Sherry?
Correct, yes. We had to have everything in for Monday for that one, so I believe it will be out next week as well.
Excellent. Great. Any other info sharing? Ren?
Well, I was just thinking the other day, I thought, back in the 90s, we had a heavy focus on Heritage Days, and we copied a lot of pictures. And we were, really, really happy with what we got. And there were pictures anywhere from 40 to 80 years old. And we're happy with what we got. We haven't done that in the last number of Heritage Days. We haven't had a lot of people come forward with them. But maybe at a future Heritage Day, we could focus on getting pictures from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, because that's now 50 years away. Mm-hmm. And it might be, like people always like their cars or like their whatever, there's a lot of pictures out there from that time period. They don't have to be, from the 1920s, 1930s. It could be from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s that we should really capture. And, so we'd have to might have to get the copy stand out again and a good camera, and but I think it would be a worthwhile effort to try to get that, to add to the collection.
I think that's a great idea. Al?
I think with the technology now, we should be doing it digitally rather than trying to, so I don't know what type of equipment. I'm sure the township has something that, if and when that happens, that we could scan the material rather than, go through. I don't know where you take the film to get it processed, to be honest with you, anymore. I know you can still do it, and I know 35 millimeters making a bit of a comeback, just like LPs, but I think we should go with the digital route. Be a lot easier as well.
On that topic, Sherry, do you guys have a good scanner, if I recall, for castle stuff?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Maybe we can have like a scanning station set up or something. Yeah, I like that idea though. I think that's good. Great. Any other info sharing? Okay, next meeting I had as to be determined, because when I did this, this was the end of our term. So if we want to stay with the second Wednesday, I think our next one would be, I think March 8th, is what I looked at. Does that work for township and IT people? Thumbs up, yep. 7 o'clock? Does that sound good for everybody? Patty, does that work for you too? Oh, I think you're muted.
That's good.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
Great. So March 8th at 7. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? Al? All right. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.